Okay, embryotomy in Yerushalmi versus Bavli, reaching almost identical legal and ethical decisions from different medical theories of partition. That's what you meant. As you all must know, there are two separate Talmuds that the Jewish nation has. We have the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, which was written in Bavel at the first centuries And parallel to that, we also have the Yerushalmi Talmud, which was not written in Yerushalayim, but rather in Tver and Caesarea. These are two Jewish centers which were actually at competition one with the other. What I want to show you here is the same legal issue which is discussed in both of the Talmudim. They both reach the same conclusion, but for different legal or ethical reasons. And what I want to suggest that these two reasons really stem from different understandings of how childbirth works, and then perhaps show you that in other cases they would actually disagree. I'm going to skip over this part because it's less relevant to us. I want to talk about what's called the pursuing fetus. In Hebrew, we call it a rodef, somebody who's pursuing somebody else in order to kill him. And as I said, there are going to be explanations of the Yerushalmi and the Bavli for the same ruling, legal ruling, but I think that their reasons stem from different understandings in medicine. Let me start with a Mishnah, which is going to be the basis for everything. I'll read it immediately in English. If a woman is experiencing dystosha, which means a difficult childbirth, one cuts up the child in a room and brings it forth limb by limb. This is what we call embryotomy. The child is cut up, of course he dies, and we thus are able to save the mother, because her life comes before that of the fetus. But if the greater part of the fetus has already emerged from her, then one may not touch it. You don't kill this half-emerged fetus in order to save the mother, for one may not set aside one person's life for that of another. And I'm going to focus on the second half. Once the child has begun to be born to a certain degree, he is already considered a life of its own, and you can't sacrifice one life for the other. This is the basic ruling which is going to guide us throughout. I now take you to the Yerushalmi in Tractate Shabbat, and this actually occurs in 3 different places in the Talmud, and they have the following interesting discussion. Again, I'm reading the English. Rav Chisda asks, may one save the life of an adult with the life of a minor? And from the context there, it's quite clear that the minor is actually running after the adult and trying to kill him. And Rav Yirmiyah immediately answers, that's exactly the case of the previous source. Is this not the ruling in the Mishnah? If the greater part has emerged, one may not touch it, for one may not set aside one person's life for that of the other? I mean, you asked about a minor trying to kill an adult. That's exactly the case when a child is being born. The mother is experiencing difficult childbirth. Basically, the fetus is trying to kill the mother. And the ruling there, of course, is you may not touch him. So this should be an answer to your question. But then Rav Yosef Barbon comes in and he says, listen, these are 2 separate cases. The case of the Mishnah is different, for you do not know who is killing who. You have the mother, you have the child. The mother is being threatened by the child, but by the same token, the child is being threatened by the mother, and therefore you're in kind of a gridlock, and therefore do not do anything. So please commit to memory, we'll get back to it again later, the red line here. Their rationale is you simply don't know who is the rodef, who is the pursuer, and who is the pursuant, if that's the proper word. So this is pursuee. So this is the discussion in the Yerushalmi. It's a relatively simple discussion, 3 stages: question, an answer from the Mishnah, and then a rejection. I now go on to the Bavli in Sanhedrin, and there almost the exact thing comes up, same issue comes up. Rav Huna says, he doesn't ask, he says, a minor pursuing another person, the pursued party may be saved with the pursuer's life. So they answer in the affirmative. Even if it's a child who is pursuing an adult, you can kill the child in order to save the adult. This is the standard ruling in a case of rodef. And now Rav Chisda raises an objection. He says, wait a minute, that Mishnah I just mentioned before seems to contradict this. Once his head has emerged, he may not be harmed in order to save the mother, because one life may not be pushed aside to save another. Why is this so? He is a pursuer. Or actually, question mark, he's a pursuer. So you see over there that a minor pursuing an adult cannot be killed in order to save the mother. And now this objection again is rejected. Childbirth is different since she is being pursued by heaven, not by the fetus. So you'll remember that the Yerushalmi gave an answer that you can't kill the fetus, and that's a different case of rodef because you don't know who is pursuing who. And the Bavli, reaching the same conclusion but from a different angle, says because she's being pursued by heaven. So again, it's that three-stage discussion. And here, I'm just putting in relief the two different rationales that are being given. Again, the Yerushalmi says you don't know who's pursuing who, and the Bavli says she's being pursued by heaven. The child is not doing anything there. Are these the same reasons in different words? Are these different reasons? And if so, what is the difference? And here I'd like to suggest to you that really they are based on two different understandings about childbirth. I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but ancient medicine, certainly Hippocrates understood that a child is born much the same way a chicken would hatch out of its egg. When the term comes for the chicken to hatch out of the egg, he becomes hungry and he becomes restless and he starts kicking around and he finally is able to break through the shell and he comes out to life. And by the same token, they understood that's what happens during childbirth. The child is growing up, gestating and maturing inside the mother's womb. At a certain point, he becomes cramped, he's not getting enough food, he becomes restless, he starts kicking around there, and one after another, he's able to tear the membranes which contain him, or he's basically tearing up the mother, until he finally comes out. This is how Hippocrates understood childbirth. So again, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here's the comparison to the chicken. And in this case, let me just go back to the beginning. The understanding is that the fetus is active during childbirth and the mother is passive. Today we know differently, and I'm not going to go into different Mesopotamian sources which seemed to hold the same thing, is that the fetus is completely passive, and it's the mother, her muscles contracting are what's pushing out the fetus. And what I'm suggesting now is that the Yerushalmi, who says, well, a case of childbirth is different because you don't know who's pursuing who, probably had the Hippocratean theory in mind. So it's true enough, the mother is endangering the child, her membranes, her muscles are holding him in. He's endangering the mother, he's trying to battle his way out. So you don't know who's the rodef and who's the nirdaf. You don't know who's pursuing who. They're equally endangering each other. And therefore, we say don't touch the child. But the Bavli, who resorts to a different reason, it says, listen, mishamayim, it's the heaven is who's actually pursuing the mother. This complication is an account of God. They apparently understand that the fetus is completely passive, inactive. And if things go wrong, during childbirth, this is heaven's decree. So this is what I'm suggesting actually, is that the Yerushalmi is more affected by the Western medicine, Hippocrates, and the Bavli, which was more Eastern, was more affected by Mesopotamian understanding of medicine. And here you see it almost in relief. Each one is giving its own understanding to the same ruling. And if I can try to generalize, then what the Yerushalmi is saying that in the case of a rodef, if the endangering is reciprocal, then you can't single out one side and say, well, he's the one who's pursuing, and the other one is being pursued, and therefore I'm going to kill A to save B, because each one is equally pursuing the other. Whereas according to Bavli, it seems that the point is, well, once the pursuer is passive, I mean, the fetus is just sitting there like a stone and being pushed out, there you can't define him as a rodef, and therefore you wouldn't hurt him. One can now try to think of cases where the Bavli and the Yerushalmi would diverge. I mean, take, for example, a case where you have a person falling from the roof and is going to crush somebody. So according to the Bavli, this person is completely passive. He's falling off the roof, and therefore you can't touch him. You can't kill him in order to save the guy on the bottom who's about to be crushed. But according to Yerushalmi, here maybe I can say, I don't care whether he's active or passive. What I'm interested is whether there's a reciprocal endangering, and here there isn't. The guy on the bottom is not endangering the falling person. The falling person is endangering the one at the bottom, and therefore I can kill the falling person in order to save the one at the bottom. You can think about the case of Yonah. We're going to be reading that chapter soon, where his mere presence on the boat was endangering the entire boat. So is he considered as a rodef, and therefore they were justified in throwing him off the boat? But on the other hand, he was completely passive. So this is what I wanted to share with you today, these two different understandings of the Bavli and the Yerushalmi about the exact same case. And I'm suggesting to you that this really comes from different understandings of medical, the medical science of childbirth, and perhaps they diverge coming to different questions. And that is about it. Thank you very much. I think they're clapping for
no.
being on time.
I'm clapping for two reasons. First of all, being on time, but second, I understood the topic. And it was a very nice presentation. Thank you very much. And I want to invite Malena Modershot-Meyer to make her presentation.